This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update, episode 888, the 40%. Enjoy. We talked about RS Mobile last week.
We talked about RS Mobile a lot last week.
We did. And they said that RS Mobile represented a third of the players. But now we have an article from mobilegamer.biz, who spoke with Mod Mike, Matt Casey, product director for RuneScape, who revealed that 40% of the total player base is on mobile. And analytics from third-party app analytics companies estimate that Jagex has made $10.2 million from 1.4 million downloads of the RuneScape 3 mobile game. And I'll say that again, 40% of the total player base is on mobile.
Mm-hmm. Then,
about half of that number play purely on mobile, and the other half play on both. So that means that 20%, or 1 in 5 players, play exclusively on mobile.
Mm-hmm.
This broke my brain.
This didn't surprise me at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is exactly what we talked about last week, and you were closer to the idea that maybe it's people that log in once in a while, and I'm like, I think it's people that play on mobile, man.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I'm trying to remember when I was last rendered speechless.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends, friends from years ago, who, I might see once or twice a month, sort of the last couple of years. But since mobile, you see them for an hour or two every day now because they've got their iPad, they'll log in at lunchtime at work and things like that. So, it hasn't necessarily brought in new players, but it is some of those casual players who play once or twice a week now can log in for an hour or so every day on either on their phone or on their
Oh, we lost you there for a second.
iPad at work. So
this past Saturday, I'm just going to round it up. 23,000 was the average number of people on RS3. That means 4,500, 4,600 of them were on mobile exclusively.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It's not that surprising to me. I mean, honestly, when you think about it, the people that like Pronasis is talking about, they probably wouldn't be here if it was only on.
Oh, and that's what Sirion said when he was looking at this, and he took a very keen interest in this story. He said, "What this means is that if mobile had not come out, perhaps 20% of the player base wouldn't exist right now."
Yep,
and I think that's, completely possible. Mobile has really helped me, once I, was able to start working and stuff. Mobile was my go-to. And it still is. I just, for my play style, mobile is totally fine. And I think, obviously I'm not alone now. We have the proof.
Yeah, and the 1/5 number, again, was very shocking to Sirion, very shocking to myself, because if you go into the article, it says, in terms of a new audience and players that hadn't played the game before, Jagex says they found it harder to hold on to these players because it's an unfamiliar experience. And what was a bit of a surprise to us was the volume of new players we did see initially. And this is the second big question mark, because this leads us to infer that Jagex was surprised that they saw an influx of new players when mobile came out.
But I don't know if I really agree with that inference, because
but that's what they said. They were surprised to see new players.
But they were top 10. That they were actually listed. If you went into the Apple App Store, they were actually, they were a recommended game on there. So that doesn't surprise me at all, because a lot of people will try it. The thing they've got to look at now, they've got the information on those people. They've got email addresses and such. Now they've got to work out a way on how to bring them back. Hey, you tried it out. You didn't quite like it initially, but we've made these changes. We've got these new things. Come back and try it again. Here's 24 hours of free membership or 7 days of free. Just do something to bring those players back and get them trying again and try and retain them.
Well, and even if it isn't that, Pronacius, they have, you bring up a good point. They do have that data now, and they can use that for any of the games that they're going to be trying to publish in the future. And
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's entirely it. That's what this is all about. We'll get to why that makes sense after. But they literally said what was a bit of a surprise was the volume of new players we did see initially. Which goes counter. That goes counter to what we were believing. Remember all the discussion that was happening in the first couple weeks about how they couldn't get it into those emerging markets in the Middle East and Asia to bring those new players in.
But are they surprised it brought in new players? Or are they surprised it brought in that many that fast? Like, I feel like there's ambiguity around
the volume of new players we did see.
And that's it. And it shocks me that they're surprised at that, because that's the whole idea of releasing it and having it in that sort of top 10 area. You're expecting a huge influx. And as I said,
and this is what Sirion also honed in on, is that it matches what the player graphs showed. A small bump on release week and thereafter, but after a couple months, everything leveled back to where it was before. And it's because of that people like myself and Sirion and a few others who are looking into this felt like, okay, maybe mobile was just an extra client for the existing players, and it didn't do its job of bringing in new players. Because you remember that discussion we had, Tanis, back in September of 2020, where it was about finding those new markets for RuneScape.
Because that's what we were being told. And
right, and then this is the point where we get to that this is a very traditional news piece, which will make sense when we talk about our next story. So I'm just going to continue on with this, and Sirion's inference is that what we're perhaps looking at now is that Jagex built up mobile over the course of several years as maybe a player retention tool, and they built it because maybe they wanted to prevent those players from bleeding out, and it would allow them to keep the existing player base engaged for longer. And he said, if you simplify things based on the numbers, perhaps, like you said, Tanis, maybe those 20% of players would have just disappeared.
Well, and I don't think these things are exclusive. You know what I mean? Who's to say their goal wasn't that, but they knew that even if that goal didn't come out, it would be this retention tool, right? We need to do this no matter what. If we get extra players, that would be great. We're really hoping for that. But no matter what, worst case scenario, this will help us keep the player base we have.
Yeah. And Sirion said, either we've been wrong this entire time, in this case, me and him, because it's largely been me and him who have been on that belief that mobile was primarily designed just for the existing player base after seeing it not penetrate and bring in the number of players that something like Old School did. Or Jagex is just releasing this right now to show what's happening under the hood and effectively reframe mobile as a success.
Bingo.
Spin it, those. Marketing 101. Spin it to a positive.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think it means we've been extremely, prescient. We just talked about this last week. Literally, while we were talking, he's probably given us a few. So, and every company, first and foremost, they're a company, right? So, I mean, all they're doing is making it sound as good as they can, and this is a good result, right? So I mean, I wouldn't blame them for that. But yeah, I think Sarion said they were retconning. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. 100%.
And isn't that what we said they needed to do all this time?
Mm-hmm.
Get somebody in marketing to drive these narratives going forward.
Yeah. And I mean, in this case,
I mean, they did a wonderful job of it, at least in the gaming media. Yeah. I will say that.
Yeah. No, I mean, but this is decent, right? Because it's not false. It's a good kind of spin. It's something we've been talking about, and I really do think that this was kind of like the backup plan. Plan B.
Yeah.
Like if Plan A doesn't work, then we can always, at least retain people.
Mm.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I've been saying they need to get ahead of this for the community aspect to, in effect, make sure the community doesn't get led astray. But at the same time, when you're looking at this in the entire gaming ecosystem of the wider gaming industry, especially with Jagex wanting to be a publisher right now, having these numbers out there, I think, makes sense. But at the same time, why didn't we hear them yelling about this last fall?
Because they were still trying to get the new player. They were still under that belief. I mean, what I like about this, I mean, for those numbers that they did share, those look pretty good. I mean, that's a decent amount of money for that few of downloads. I mean, I know I'm saying
it's not even a conventional. It's not even a conventional
really
mobile game.
No, and I mean, most mobile games, they well, not most, but some of the bigger ones, their download numbers dwarf that.
Yeah.
Like that's not a real big download number. It's big for us, but not like, mobile world.
Don't forget, in that 10 mil, that's going to be buying bonds, buying memberships, all that.
And
type
that's my
of
next
stuff,
question.
That's all part of the
What do the in-app purchases look like for these exclusive mobile people? How much are they buying, and how much how much can they keep RS3 keep the money flowing into the RS3 coffers, so to speak, or the Jagex coffers, I guess, at this point.
But they never went whole hog mobile. Like when I spend money on this game, it's usually when I'm actually playing on my desktop, right? Like I don't see this monetization method being the traditional mobile approach. Like I don't spend more money or anything when I'm playing it. So I would think that would just be parallel to what people do normally in the larger game.
All right, that's fair, I guess. Mind blown. That's all I got to say about that. And I'm not going to look at mobile the same way ever again, and I'm not going to look at the mobile community and the RS3 community again the same way when I realized that potentially up to 40% of the player base is on mobile, and half of that is playing exclusively on their mobile devices. I'm not going to look at the community again the same way.
Yeah. Well, we're not a majority yet. I was going to say we're a silent majority. We're not quite, but we're working on it.
You can find full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. If you found this video useful or just enjoyed it, like and subscribe, or leave a comment.